If you have one person that's planning the trips, one person that's paying most of the bills, what you also do is you rob the other person of that experience. Male and female, there's no everyone splits every bill, and that was just not the case.
I am from Texas. I find it very unsexy if a guy doesn't pay for the meal.
Mm-hmm. No one's talking about equality in this dialogue.
It's a turnoff for me.
Right.
Like, if this person can do that, then do I fully give myself to them? Take the initiative.
And the problem with that, I realize, as I'm robbing the ability for someone that cares for me to do something nice for me. I saw in my relationship probably a place that I missed was... Hello, Arianna.
Hello, Mike.
Welcome to Open Risk.
Thank you very much. Today we're talking about the masculine and feminine.
The masculine and feminine. Yeah. And this has come up a lot for us over the last few months.
It has.
So, I can start with my experience because it was pretty, I think, unique.
Yeah.
And then maybe how it changes, and we can kind of go into relationship.
I would love that.
So, I met my kind of partner when I was 18. And I think at that phase in life, I'm not thinking about masculine roles or feminine roles or what that kind of means. And we build a life together, but it's really kind of truly equal, right? Because we met at such a young age. We both had professional careers. And although over time we maybe settled into certain roles where maybe naturally my career choices made more money than my wife's, and she went to become a psychologist and I became a venture capitalist and entrepreneur, we never really structurally defined the masculine and feminine. But in the last few months of meeting women and talking to people and hearing their stories, one thing that's been clear to me is that this concept and this dynamic of the masculine and feminine, especially now that I'm not 18, it's a very specific thing. And so I'd start with the question you saying, when you meet somebody new, tell us how you're thinking about the masculine role and the feminine role and what that means initially on meeting somebody.
I think it comes down to this idea, can the person take the initiative?
Mm-hmm.
Or do they give off the vibe that they can take the initiative?
Okay.
Which I think boils down to this almost biological inherent need for stability, at least from a woman's standpoint.
Okay.
It comes back to something I've said already multiple times,
Mm-hmm.
but it's I can do things for myself. I'm very, very capable. I'm very independent. I'm
Sure.
very capable of being self-sufficient. I was talking to this guy that I'm currently dating 2 days ago, and I was like, I'd rather you do this, but I'm also very capable of entertaining myself.
Right. You're comfortable being alone. You're comfortable doing what you want,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a certain masculine dynamic you like, and you're saying taking initiative. So what does that mean to you?
It's less about asserting dominance, I think, and it's more about being decisive and being, basically reading a room, but reading a person.
Okay.
So if this guy, if he's like, okay, I know that you like this, this, and this, either
Mm-hmm.
because you've told me or because I experienced it firsthand.
Right.
Taking that into account, do you want to go do this, this, or this, or do you want this, this, or this kind of thing?
Right.
And obviously there's some dominance within it, but it's not this complete
Sure.
show of dominance.
Dominance is kind of a triggering word. Maybe that's a heavy word. Maybe it's saying that this partner preemptively is guessing your needs.
Exactly.
And this partner is getting you what you need, suggesting what we should do, whatever. They're kind of defining some level of role that's making you feel taken care of or thought of? Considered.
I think thought of.
Right, because you can take care of yourself.
Exactly. And I'm a very considerate person
Mm-hmm.
to the extent that I really like to watch.
Sure. Wait, what does that mean you like to watch?
I like to kind of just see.
Okay. You want to take in a moment.
Exactly.
Okay.
So by that being reciprocated,
Mm-hmm.
it makes me feel special, taken care of.
Yeah, cared for.
Considered,
Mm-hmm.
respected.
Okay. In a certain sense, you think there's a primal feeling of, could this person take care of me if I needed it?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Am I feeling taken care for, taken care of? And then they're demonstrating this through dialogue, through decision-making, through proactive stuff.
Now, actually, that you've said that, it's making me think.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is almost a test in a way.
Okay.
If this person can do that, then do I fully give myself to them? Do I also want to take care of this person?
Oh, interesting. Okay. Right. Because they have the emotional, the physical, and maybe even the economic capacity to take care of you in whatever form. You then feel like you can reciprocate that because because you feel safe.
Exactly.
Because you're like, this person has the ability to take care of me.
Exactly.
And the point is, what we're saying is this happens from the moment they show up. Are they opening the car door? Are they guiding a decision to a restaurant? Are they making a clear decision? Are they paying for the meal? All these little factors?
Yeah, it definitely starts from the moment they show up.
Okay.
Have I been probably wrong before within the first 5 seconds? Most likely, yes.
Oh, like in that somebody didn't demonstrate this, but they were capable, or somebody over demonstrated this, but they were not capable?
Maybe just that someone surprised me.
Okay. They weren't what you expected. So on the masculine side, what we're basically saying is, and we're talking from a very heterosexual view here, right? We're basically saying that, you know, a man showing up on a date, you know, initial experience is basically, you know, showing you that they have the capacity to take care of somebody, and they're demonstrating this through these small little actions, and that's kind of triggering something in you being like, possible.
Yes, actually. And this goes back to something we were talking about the other day, which is if you're on a date and the person is either just talking the whole time or the conversation maybe isn't flowing, there's a difference between that and someone having like, you know, a semblance of balance within a conversation. So if he's like, oh, you know, if I ask a question, I'm like, you know, he'll go on and on, like I did blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then he's like, but what about you? Or like he asks questions too. So he actually is showing that he cares, you know, via asking questions.
Right.
Which I think is huge.
Yeah.
Because another thing I absolutely hate, and honestly, it doesn't really matter if I'm on a date or if I'm meeting somebody new. It doesn't matter if it's a girl, a boy. It really doesn't fucking matter. If someone doesn't ask questions, like they could be an awesome person.
Right.
But it's such a turnoff to me.
Sure.
That I then also eventually will stop asking questions because I don't respect or care to know that person.
Yeah. Okay, I understand that. I mean, that's maybe a narcissist or somebody just wants to talk about themselves the whole time, and so they're not really reciprocating in a good dialogue, right?
Yeah.
But here's the question: if at the end of the day, at the beginning, or that at the beginning of a date, if there are these triggering points or these motions that would show that like a man has the ability to like take care of a partner, what is the feminine side of that? Like, what's the man looking for within these dialogue points? And granted, this could relate to dating, but it also can relate to friendship, which is like, are you treating people around you with kindness and respect?
Exactly.
Like, are you treating, if you're in a restaurant, are you treating the wait staff with kindness and respect? So maybe that's a certain warmth that you're looking for, right?
And I'm also the kind of friend where if one of my friends needs me, it doesn't, again, gender regardless, it could be someone I'm dating, it could be someone I'm not dating.
Right.
If I get like a phone call, like crying,
right,
I'll drop whatever I'm doing and I go.
Right.
Like I'm that kind of friend.
Yeah.
But I also, because of that, expect that back. I expect a reciprocal.
Right.
In whatever way, shape, or form that person is able to give it.
Right.
And so I'm not expecting someone to do the exact same thing I am. But I am expecting someone to be there for me.
Right.
As I am for them.
Right. So that I understand this.
Yeah.
This is basically saying there's an opportunity. If there's an opportunity for you to show kindness and warmth to somebody, you would want to show it. And if you're on a date or somebody and they witness this, they would see that this is a specific feminine trait.
Exactly. And like I'm not expecting how that person shows those traits to mirror mine.
Right.
To mirror the way I'm just, you can tell when someone has those traits in whatever way they manifest.
Right.
And I do look for that. So, for example, this guy I am currently dating, we went to a party a few nights ago. Neither of us actually knew a lot of people there. But at one point, there was a small 3-year-old child who I think maybe he had he saw a few times a year. I don't know. And he fully just gets down on both knees. Where it's a barn party. We're literally in a arena. It's dirt on the floor, and he gets down on both knees, and he is doing something with the child. And I was like, I love that. Right. That shows that kind of kindness.
Right. Which brings up a question, because we're talking about masculine and feminine in the scope of man and woman, but the reality is what we're really talking about is caring and to care for, right? So in that case, he was displaying the ability to care and care for somebody else, right? Just as maybe if he pays for a meal or opens a door for you, that's also caring for you.
Exactly.
And so, which kind of brings up the question, which is masculine, feminine, man, woman, but are we just talking about this kind of emotionality between individuals? It doesn't have to be gender based.
I guess so. And so going to the paying for a meal part, I think this is important because I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of different people about this.
Yeah. And
to preface, I am from Texas.
Sure.
So I find it very unsexy if a guy doesn't pay for the meal. That's not to say I couldn't.
Right.
But it's a turnoff for me.
Right.
However, I was having a conversation with the guy I'm dating and his brother last night. And essentially they were talking about it. The brother is of the belief that, you know, after the 5th date, if the girl doesn't offer to split, like, no. And the guy I'm dating was like, okay, that's a little weird. I actually disagree. And I was like, thank God you disagree, because I disagree too.
Okay.
But also I eventually was like, this is how I feel about it. But I also have no issue buying groceries.
Sure.
Like doing things like that.
Right.
There's always, again, going to be an imbalance within a relationship.
Right.
It is always going to be a little like teeter-totter kind of thing.
And over time, it might balance out.
It might, but I mean, there's always one person might be up here at one point.
Sure.
The other person's going to be up here at some point.
That's
it's
right.
like, and also it depends on your environment, or your setting.
Yeah.
So like in certain settings, one person's going to be up here.
Right.
In other settings, could be 1 minute later.
Right.
The other person could be up here. It's like, it's always a give and take.
I think we also break into the stages like, if you're 18 and in college, right? You may not have the ability to pay for a meal, but that doesn't mean you don't have the ability to plan a great date or go on a great walk or go on a great hike. And maybe from a masculine or whoever's taking the, like, I'm going to take care of it kind of role, they can go ahead and plan that stuff. It doesn't have to be financially based, right? Yeah. But at some point, call it 20s to 30s, I would imagine when you're dating, you know, you're kind of like saying, if this person can't pay for a meal, is this person really going to be able to build a life with me? Yeah. Right? Like, is that problematic? Now, from your boyfriend's brother, I think the question is, maybe he's like, we're in a relationship now. We're 5 dates in. Yeah. So at some point, it goes from this, like, I'm showing you that I'm taking a masculine role. Someone else is showing me that they're taking a feminine role. But at some point, you're moving to, now we're in a relationship. And there are certain realities of that relationship, right? Like, they have a job, you have a job, there's a certain amount of money, someone makes more, someone makes less, and there's a dynamic there, right? And so maybe what he's saying is 5 dates in, like, we have to have kind of a conversation of what this looks like. Yeah. Fair?
That's fair.
If you think through your past relationships, at what point was there like, okay, we're past the pantomime. I understand you can take care of me. I understand I can be caring, but now we're in this reality of like, what does this mean? Rent checks and grocery bills and who's paying for, you know, the Netflix account and all this kind of stuff.
I lived with my last boyfriend.
Yeah.
He would always like do meals, like always kind of thing. You know, if I knew he was out of like milk or something, like I would go to the grocery store. I would buy the groceries.
You fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
Right. But the primary stuff, there was never a split.
No.
Got it. But in most relationships, there probably is. Unless you're dating somebody that's substantially more wealthy or like making more money than somebody else, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I think that there's that middle phase of like, it's going to hit people at some point, the reality of it.
Yeah. And I think I'm not a great barometer.
Sure.
Because I am from Texas and I am from this very, this is how it works.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that like the woman is submissive or the woman doesn't have power. It's just how things work within that particular regard. Yeah.
But I think for me, like in my first kind of long-term relationship, there definitely was a point when we were both working and we were splitting, right? Like we were splitting rent and we're splitting stuff. That's not to say that if we go out to dinner, one of us wouldn't pay for the other as like a good demonstration of like, this is a date, this is a special moment. I want to give you this gift of experience. But the tactical dailies went into a split situation. And then I think the third phase for us in our relationship was at some point, you know, my career was just naturally more lucrative than her career. And then it kind of started looking like, look, the lifestyle that I can afford for us is maybe greater than the lifestyle that we could do if we were splitting. Yeah. And so why don't we start easing off the splitting and letting me take care of more of it, just because from a capacity perspective, we can have an enhanced lifestyle, right? And we had dialogue about that. And I think that, you know, looking back at that time for us in our relationship, definitely my spouse was concerned about that imbalance. Like she did not like it.
How old were you guys?
Well, I mean, I had a pretty substantial transaction when I turned 30. So it's like leading up to 30, you know, it's like from 25 to 30, I would imagine I was paying for a lot of things because she was also completing grad school. And then by the time I hit 30, it was clear that like, you know, I was going to have a lot more capital than she was in her career. And if we wanted a nicer home or nicer home for the kids or other things, like chances are I was paying for a lot of stuff. But I would tell you, like she and I very much at that phase in life really valued balance. And I think it was uncomfortable for both of us a little bit, maybe more so for her feeling imbalanced that I was like predominantly paying for stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the other thing that it did, and I reflect on this sometimes, is like if you have one person that's planning the trips, one person that's paying most of the bills, you know, what you also do is you rob the other person of that experience to do.
I think that's interesting because one of my deal breakers is a guy that can't cook.
Okay.
Because I dated a guy that can't cook. And it was like unenjoyable.
Right.
I'm currently dating a guy that can cook and loves to cook.
Right.
Like the other day, he was like, let's do dinner kind of thing. Like I'm like, okay, well, what are we cooking? Because I'm not the expert here. So you're gonna tell me exactly what we're cooking.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, let's do like steak, blah blah. And I was like, great. Like, you go do your thing. I'll go to the grocery store.
Okay.
And I love that because I got to contribute.
Right.
And then he got to make me this meal that I fully could not make on my own.
Yeah.
So I think maybe looking at that deal breaker, maybe it is because I mean, I do want to contribute in a certain capacity.
Yes.
And I also like the kind of care it shows to make a nice meal for someone, but I am not a great cook.
Right.
So I can't provide that particular thing, but I can provide the commentary, the good vibes, and the groceries. Yeah,
I definitely understand that. I saw in my relationship probably a place that I missed was, like, for instance, I like to do things by myself, right? And so if it came time to like make a meal, I'd just rather do it myself because I never wanted to feel like indebted to somebody or like it was imbalanced. I'm like, I got it. Don't worry about it. I got it, right? And the problem with that, I realize, as I'm robbing the ability for someone that cares for me to do something nice for me, right? And over time, that creates an imbalance. Right?
Yeah.
Because it means I'm taking care of my own needs and I'm taking care of their needs. And I'm also not allowing them to take care of my needs, which means that like it's just programmatically imbalanced. And in a certain way, it starts with finance because it's like, hey, you know, as a guy and in my chosen career, I'm probably going to make more money than my partner, which means that I'll just handle it. I'll plan the trip. I'll pay for the thing. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But then it bled into other areas of life where I was like, I got it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And at some point, I think I robbed my partner of the experience of taking care of me.
But I find it interesting because like I would personally love that. I would love that. That means I could go like do whatever the fuck I wanted to do.
Yes.
You know, like like maybe I'll write a book. Who knows?
Who knows? Open risk, literary edition.
Exactly. But I think that like just a sidebar for a second. I think that's interesting because like, what are your love languages?
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. It's like my love language is physical touch. My love language is quality time for sure. But it's not like gifts.
Mine's definitely like quality time, physical touch, acts of service / kindness. 100%. I actually love doing that.
Yeah.
And gifts. But not
so you get all the love languages.
That one, but like the gifts is definitely the least of the one,
right?
Because I think for me at least, gifts and acts of service are the same thing in a weird way.
I can see that. Yeah, one's an experience and one's a physical thing.
And exactly, and I love experience. Like to me, like
more valuable than physical.
Like you know, when I graduated college, my parents were like, "What do you want?" And I was like, "I don't want to watch.
Right.
I want to go on a trip."
Yeah. It's great. Okay, so you have these love languages, but I do think that although it sounds great to have a partner that's like, I'll take care of everything. Don't worry about anything. You can do whatever you want. I think over a long period of time, it creates a difficult imbalance.
That I think, especially though, if you can't like do those acts of service or
true, because if they're restricting you from doing it.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly. Because I love that. Like every time my boyfriend, I guess, makes dinner, I'm like, okay, how can I help clean up? What can I do? Like what?
Yeah, you want to be part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to create balance.
And I want to, like, I know for a fact that he fully would be like, you don't need to do anything. Sit.
Right.
And I'm like, no, I need to. So let me help you.
Yeah, that's right.
What can I do in my limited capacity in a kitchen?
Right. Now you're in the relationship stage, right? Which is like, okay, now we're finding the dynamic. Maybe it's money related. Maybe it's service related. Maybe it's whatever it is related. I'll tell you, I was really surprised. Like I spoke to a bunch of women from Texas and they kept talking about this like pink job, blue job thing.
I've never heard this.
Yeah, this was like the weirdest concept. They're like, oh, well, he takes out the trash. That's like a blue job.
Oh, yeah, I don't like taking out the trash.
Right. And she's like, well, I do this because it's a pink job. And I was like, what? Like, are we gender defining household tasks now?
Honestly, if I take out the trash, I really have to love the person.
Okay. So I was really surprised. So, but you're in this relationship status. And so you're still looking for masculine, feminine, but you're dividing it in some level of kind of maybe there's equality, right?
What other tasks?
It was all the traditional stuff that like I kind of get a little nauseated thinking through of like almost like Little House on the Prairie level roles for men and women that just feels so weird to me. But they had divided up all the needed things within the relationship with pink and blue. And this was just the thing. And the moment that the guys no longer did the blue tasks, it was like a really big issue kind of thing. Like, and they were just, but but very gender role based, you know, like, again, like most of my life was in the West. I mean, honestly, my whole life's essentially been West Coast and California. So like, I'm really unfamiliar with that level of gender definition, but talking to people from Texas, because obviously there's a lot of people from Texas here. Interesting.
That is interesting. And for some reason, it brought me to making the bed.
Sure.
I hate a messy bed.
Okay.
I think it makes me feel disorganized. Okay. It's like not having my nails
Let's start your day with a clean bed.
Yeah, I need both of those things. Mm-hmm. and my ex and I, one thing that I actually really loved that we did together was we made the bed together every single morning.
Right.
And it was always really fun.
Okay.
Like we would, throw a pillow, that it was just a great time all around.
Nice.
And one thing with my current boyfriend that I saw was one day I like came down. He also he like makes me coffee. There's always coffee sitting on the counter for me.
So you feel taken care of.
I love that.
He's preemptively thinking of your needs.
And the best part is I don't even drink coffee that often.
Except for when
I
with him,
his coffee.
You're like, I'll drink your coffee.
I will drink his coffee.
Nice.
And it's funny, every time I tell my friends this, they're like, Arianna, you don't even drink coffee.
Right. But you appreciate the moment.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it, and I drink his coffee.
That's right.
But at one point, I like got out of the shower and I came, out to the bedroom, and the bed was made, and I was like, I love that he did this.
Interesting.
Because that's like an act of service. That's an act of kindness.
Right.
And then we've made the bed together. But that's one of those things that I think probably for me at least, like will always be there, because it doesn't matter if like someone's coming to clean your house or not. Will fully always just make the bed.
Yeah.
And I think like I will always do it for someone. I love that someone reciprocates it for me, and I love doing it together.
Okay, going back to the masculine and feminine, how does this statement trigger you? So I was talking to someone and they said, women want to feel loved and taken care of, and men want to feel appreciated and respected. Do we like this statement? Because I'd also argue like men want to feel loved and cared for too.
Yeah.
And women,
I think that puts people into too small of boxes.
Yeah.
But I do think largely it does ring true.
Right.
I don't. Like it kind of goes down to this biological need for like women to like men need to almost like feel possession.
Right.
And women need to feel possessed, like from a very biological and like evolutionary standpoint.
Yeah.
Because like, when we were nomads centuries ago, like millennia ago, it was like women are these ones that are like allowing, biological makeup to continue.
Sure.
They're allowing like this, man's genes to, not die out with him. Right.
You're thinking that they have this biological desire to say, I need to find someone that can be a protector and take care and provide, and therefore I'll procreate with this person because then my child will have protection to be able to procreate.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think the only reason I'm even saying this is because to kind of translate it today, I think let's talk about cheating for a second. Okay. You have physical cheating and you have emotional cheating, and obviously you have both, but sometimes you are emotionally cheating without ever having anything physical. Sure. And then often, sometimes you're physically cheating, but you also hate the person. I don't know, like, sure, you're not emotionally. Yep. And I think for women, if their partner is emotionally cheating on them, it doesn't honestly matter if that person has physically cheated or not physically cheated. Right. That is like horrible. Yeah. Because they feel like they're out. They're done. This person doesn't love them anymore. This person will not care for them anymore. That's the end of the relationship. Yep. That's the worst thing ever. Yep. Versus physical cheating that you can kind of internalize and be like, okay, well, do you love her? Do you not love her? Like, blah, blah, blah. Right. Then on the inverse side, I think for a man, both are bad. But I think physically cheating is far worse than just simply emotionally cheating. Because of this kind of like possessive, like this is my person, like now she's been with somebody else, like what, like, like this, that's the horrible part for them. Right. It's like she's potentially procreating with another person, which means that she doesn't respect me. Right. And she's saying he's emotionally connected to another woman, and that means she's not in love with me kind of thing. Yeah, I could see that. Hopefully no one's cheating, but it happens all the time, for sure. As we started these dialogues around the masculine and feminine, it always really bothered me just generally because I want to live in a world where it's like equal. The more we had dialogue with people,
they're dating, married, whatever, the more this actually became as a really important topic. And the more we talked to young people, we found that it was also a really confusing topic, right? Which surprised me, but it was definitely not what I wanted to hear. Like, I wanted to hear about a perfectly balanced world where everyone's there's no other male and female, there's no like everyone splits every bill, and that was just not the case.
That, and I actually, when we first started even talking about doing the podcast and we first started just talking to other people, one question that a friend of mine asked was, is commitment even possible in 2024? Which then got us talking about like open relationships, swingers, like I don't like just anything. If I'm in a committed relationship, if I am exclusively seeing one single person, I can't hook up with other people.
Because you're emotionally connected to them.
Exactly. Like I don't think I could be in an open relationship. I commend people that can.
Do you though?
I don't know. Like I one time I briefly was like dating a guy in college who was in an open relationship. And it lasted very short. It was like a very short amount of time because it was weird. It was weird to me. Actually, I felt icky.
Well, because you're clearly like a second person to them. You're not their emotional priority. You're not getting the intimacy you probably wanted. You're just getting physical connection or whatever. Yeah, for sure. I don't know whether it's harder now than it was previously. I think it's also very like socioeconomic based, because like I'm sure if you're like barely surviving and you can barely make your rent, the concept of like dating multiple people, you're like, are you kidding me? Like I've like my basic needs. I think it's like a lot of this stuff is privileged for people that are wealthy and have a lot of time and like live in certain, because they can like balance all this kind of stuff. One thing that you and I saw multiple times through friends were these stories where there was a couple, at some point the woman ended up making more money than the man. The man felt, I'm never sure if it's emasculated or demasculated. Let's say it's emasculated, I think. And then suddenly there was like psychological abuse, there was physical abuse, and it ended up the relationship getting destroyed. And this is something I would never expect, because at least from my perspective, I'd be thrilled if my partner was making more money than me. That just sounds like we get better vacations and cooler experiences. But we heard this over and over of women saying the moment I, had a more successful career than my man, like basically it got really bad.
I got the one story that's coming to mind is the one that's my friend told both of us. Which was essentially she started dating this guy when she was senior in college. She was 20, he was 25. He was a pro athlete, I think golfer. And they lived in Florida. They decided to like move in together. Her parents were like, we'll pay for your apartment kind of thing. And so they move in together in an apartment that her parents are paying for. And then by the time she graduates college, she gets a high paying job kind of right out the bat. And this guy's sports career, golf career, kind of has been tanking a little bit. So he's not really he's having some financial struggles, and she is not. And then so she's also very much a like acts of service kind of person. She definitely probably has other love languages, but she's very much an acts of service. Like, let me help you. To her friends, to her partners, doesn't matter. Just another thing that she does is like, he basically at one point is like, well, I'm not in a financial place to take you on dates anymore. And one thing she actually said was, well, if anybody that knows me knows that I would actually much rather go watch the sunset with a fucking like sandwich, like a PB&J doesn't really matter, than go to a nice expensive dinner. She also golfs, and so she was part of a nice country club, and she literally like made him her spouse on the country club membership so that he could play golf on a really nice course. She did things like that for him. She planned all of their dates, like did all of this stuff. He also, side note, he also grew up in a very traditional family, to the extent that when the family found out that he was living in an apartment paid for by her parents, that he was like, that basically he was being supported by her and her family, they like cut him off.
Oh, wow. So his family rejected him because he was being taken care of by his girlfriend.
Like they stopped talking to him. The one thing that he, in the relationship that he was able to provide was cooking. And that's when like the abuse kind of started as, he basically gave her an eating disorder. I think the first thing he cut out was like, he was like, you shouldn't I'm cooking us this. Also, like, you really shouldn't be eating bread. Like, there's a lot of sugar in that. Like, you shouldn't be eating bread. Then the next thing was like fruit, and then dessert, red meat. And basically by the end of the relationship, she was 95 pounds. She's literally like 5'8".
Wow. So he controlled her through food. And kind of like, at least in her mind, kind of punished her.
Exactly.
Right. Or abused her through
Exactly.
this food. Yeah.
And, you know, he gave her like body dysmorphia.
Yeah. And so we've heard similar stories of like basically the moment that this masculine feminine gets switched, that there's a big problem. I mean, I heard a story of a woman that would say directly that if she felt like if she made more money than her man, that she would be like less attracted to him, right? There was like, she wanted him to like be that provider. And then to your point, like we've heard a lot of stories about when the man found that the woman was making more, that he, you know, reacted really badly. So this does happen.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how prolific it is or, you know, but we definitely have come across quite a few of these stories, right? So that kind of brings you into this like, okay, you're in this, you know, the first phase is this, you know, are we showing each other that we can be in these specific roles? The second phase is there's this negotiation phase of like, who's paying for what and how are we going logistics? Then there's this third phase of like, okay, now we're deep in a relationship. Like, how's the balance really feeling? And then there's these control provisions, who's making more money, who's controlling stuff. And one thing that you and I came across is that a lot of time in the longer term relationships, in this case, yeah, it ended up in abuse, but a lot of times it also ends up with women feeling really trapped, right? Where like they're in a marriage, they've sacrificed their career, or their career has taken a second seat to, you know, a traditional role. Suddenly at the end of the day, they're not making as much money as their spouse. Suddenly at the end of the day, it's better just let the spouse go and really drive the financials because they've really thrived. And suddenly they look around and they're like, where am I? I want to change. Can I get out? Oh my God, I don't have the skills I thought I had. I've been on the bench for 10 years.
Yeah.
What do I do?
There's like statistically higher rates of domestic violence or domestic abuse.
Sure.
Because it can be emotional. It doesn't have to be physical. It can be psychological in rural communities because they predominantly do have these structural norms. And so a lot of time women, they won't even have jobs, much less be the breadwinner.
Right.
And they're home taking care of the kids. They don't have any sort of means to get out of a relationship like that because they don't have anything.
Right.
Except for what their husband provides.
Yeah. So then they feel trapped, right? And they either stay or they take a really big risk or they reset their life, which they don't really want to do.
Exactly. And like, so like in college, I became a certified domestic violence volunteer in the state of Maine.
Yep.
And it was horrific because there are like 2 safe houses in all of Maine. And Maine has one of the highest rates of domestic abuse in the country.
Oh, wow.
Because it's so predominantly rural.
Yeah.
And a lot of these women can't do anything.
Yeah.
Because they don't have anything.
Yeah. Yeah. They've lost their skills. They're no longer in the workforce. They don't have access to money.
They don't have money. They don't have anything. And then also on top of that, they don't have a place to go because the rooms are full at all of the
shelters
at the 2 places that they could go.
Yeah.
One of which is also a substance, like a anti-substance abuse place. So if you smoke weed, you're fucked.
Right. Yeah.
You can't go there.
Yeah.
You have one option.
Yeah.
And it's really shitty.
Yeah. So then you start asking, like, to your question is, can there be commitment in 2024? Like the bigger question is like, is there, like, are we designing these relationships the right ways? Like maybe you get lucky and you get a great partner that's a 30, 50 year kind of journey. But in a lot of cases, people aren't getting that lucky. And I think collectively we're feeling that like a lot of women at the end of the day are being kind of left out to dry. Right. You know, that graphic where it's like, some wolves looking at these humans by the campfire and they're like, how bad could it be? Let's go get some free food. And then it's like 10,000 years later, whatever. It's like, we have domesticated dogs running around. It's like kind of like, well, he's opening the door for you. How bad could it be? Let's let him pay for the meal. And then 25 years later, you're like, I can't leave my marriage. You know, you wonder like, we all not we all, but collectively we're hearing a lot of people have this biological need of this masculine feminine dynamic, but then we're fast forwarding it 20 years into a relationship being like, did that work out?
And I think that's why it's important to like look at all of the small things. So like, you know, bending down to like say hi to a child or okay, a big thing for me is being introduced to friends. Like I am very much capable of saying, hi, I'm Arianna. Nice to meet you. Yeah. But I want someone to be like, this is Arianna.
Yeah. You want someone that's proud to be standing there with
blah,
you.
Blah, blah.
Right.
And I think that's huge because I have been in a relationship before where that would happen sometimes, but not all the time. And looking back on it, that was pretty indicative of why I'm not with that guy anymore, because he didn't really show me the respect that like I showed him or that I deserved.
Right. Right.
And so being with someone who always, without fail, is going to be like, wait, come here. Like, I want to introduce you.
Right.
That, I think, is a really good barometer.
Right. And we've talked to women that felt like, or men that felt like they couldn't introduce these women, or the women would stay back, or like, because you're basically talking about being on equal footing with a partner. What's a true partnership? This is us together. I want to be introduced. Like, this is right.
That, and one other thing my friend who was in the abusive relationship said was, like, in her work life, she's very dominant, like very much like a go-getter, like let's fucking do this. Like I'm calling the shots. Yeah. And so in her home life, she wants to be more submissive. She wants to be taken care of. Yeah. And I don't even know if submissive is the right word. She just wants to be taken care of.
She doesn't want to have to make all the decisions.
She doesn't want to be she doesn't want to be the primary decision maker.
I get that.
Which is so understandable.
No, and I've heard this too. I mean, I spend a lot of time with pretty powerful women, and certainly, and they have a very similar sentiment, which is they're like, look, I make decisions all day. I command my company. I command my team. When I come home, I don't want to do any of that. One metaphor, I used to think about is like this risk parameter, right? So like, somebody choosing where we go to the restaurant, low risk decision, choosing what house you're going to buy, how you're going to raise a child, high risk decision. So it certainly feels to me like there's a masculine and feminine, like let's have fun at these roles and the low risk stuff. On the high risk stuff, let's really like cooperate, partnership, like make decisions together. Right. But yeah, I mean, if you're working all day and you come home and you're like, I just want to be taken care of, and someone's like, I got this, I'm going to make the decisions for us tonight. You don't have to like decision load yourself. Like, that's nice dynamic, right? Yeah. It feels to me like all the people we talked with, it still feels confusing to me, the masculine, feminine.
It does.
But what's true is no one's talking about equality in this dialogue. You know, they're not saying I want equal footing. They're saying that everyone consistently has said, I want a very masculine approach on the initial date. Women particularly. Maybe later on there's equal footing, but no one's talking to us about equality right now.
And but it's not possible to have like a perfect balance all the time.
Sure.
I do think like, you know, maybe in this setting, one person has a little bit more. We walk out the door and then the other person has a little bit more.
Sure.
Or we go to a party and it's my friends.
Sure.
I have more, you know, power in this setting.
Yeah.
You have less.
Yeah.
Inverse.
Yep.
You can inverse that. And so I think it's about sharing the imbalance.
Oh, I like that. I like the concept that there's different power for different people. You're using different settings. It's less about man, woman. It's more about who has what in what scenario.
And I think that's like what respect is understanding that imbalance is a shared thing.
Yeah. No, I like that. It reminds me, I was told a story, like in college, I had like a really nice car that I had bought, and a friend of mine had like a really old car, and we were racing around or something. And I remember him saying to me like, hey, Mike, it's not fair because I was using 90% of my car's capacity and I lost the race, and you were using 50% of your car's capacity and you won the race. And in a certain sense, everyone has different capacity and different levels. Right. And so if I'm really high capacity in one place, maybe I'm going to take the dominant or the more proactive role to use that high capacity. If you have more capacity, maybe you're doing it that way. Granted, we are recognizing there's a biological thing that's happening when you first meet somebody and you're evaluating their ability to like build a life together and protect and nurture and grow. But this concept of like where we are capacity level can balance itself out, I think, over time.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool.
Cheers.
Fun. Amazing. Good episode.
Tune in next week for I don't know what.
We'll see.